Mr. Hajide, I know that if you critically examine the arguments that have been canvassed for this, not only by the NDC, even civil society prior to now, these concerns are fundamental to the reasons that have been raised to access. And once people who form a certain demographics, who become the majority of people within the structure of the register, can get access to a certain key document, which they've been using all these years, it becomes problematic when they have to resort to some others.
Well, Roland, good morning to you and to my colleague here and to the cherished viewers of JoyNews TV. I don't think that you should be swayed by the logic of the NDC, their allies and their privies. It is very limited. It is not grounded in law. It is born out of an attitude and the tendency to want to frustrate the Electoral Commission, which has been manifestly made evident long before the Jean Mensa-led Electoral Commission took office. The NDC came out publicly to announce their intention to frustrate the Electoral Commission all throughout and along the line. And they have been consistent in their promise to the people of Ghana that they were going to badmouth, they were going to frustrate the Electoral Commission for only God knows what. It is my view that the processes that have led to the ousting of some earlier commissioners is one that the NDC takes such a serious view of, that they are unable to leave that behind and make progress. And so there is some bitterness that the NDC still has, and they are venting it on the Electoral Commission.
How does that become part of the argument?
I'm saying because that's exactly what it is. There's no issue at all, and they have been consistent. And they have kept on shifting the goalposts from time to time. Today, it is about breather documents for the registration and so on and so forth. I'll come to that. I'd like to take it one issue after the other. Initially, the NDC makes the point that they do not support the compilation of a new register. And they have gone fishing, trying to find excuses along the line. Fishing is what they have been doing. The last straw they are holding on to is the CI that we are discussing. But I'd like our viewers to avert their minds to the number of shifts that the NDC has gone through. But Bernard, I have said that anybody who is a follower of our processes, anybody who is minded by the very laws that we operate, knows that there are even legal reasons why we need a new register. The NDC has not averted the matter. Bernard, this is
Roland.
Roland. This is the CI 72, upon which the 2012 register was compiled. And this is what, and I want to show you some very fundamental issues that even by their nature render the 2012 register invalid and null and void. And that we must all, even at this point, this is a register that should have been changed long ago. This is clause 3 of the CI. For a person who applies for registration as a voter shall provide, a person who applies for registration as a voter shall provide as evidence of identification one of the following: passport, driver's license, national identification card, national health insurance card, an existing voter card, or one voter registration identification guarantee form as set out. This is what the law says. These are the documents that the Parliament of Ghana, the law says, should be used to register. Now, this is the training manual of the Electoral Commission for the registration of the 2012, the manual that was used by the EC staff to compile the register. These are the documents that the EC then, in outright violation of what the law says, this is what the EC says: any one of the following documents can be presented by an applicant to prove his or her eligibility. Birth certificate. Where is birth certificate in the CI? There is none. The EC on their own decides that they can accept birth certificate as a means of registration. The Parliament of Ghana that passed the law, my brother, Honorable Apaak, is arguing today that a birth certificate is not allowed. Even in 2012, when CI 72 was being passed, there was no birth certificate in the CI. The Electoral Commission on their own added birth certificate is here. National Health Insurance Certificate, it is in the CI. Passport, it is in the CI. Driver's license, it is in the CI. Baptismal certificate, where did that come from? It is again not in the CI. The base document
and this is an argument that have been canvassed over the...
So I am saying to you that for any register that has as a breeder document, birth certificate and baptismal certificate, that ab initio, that registration is null and void because it does not have any constitutional backing. Now the Electoral Commission, then you remember the Abu Ramadan case. They go to court and they say that the National Health Insurance card does not give proof of your Ghanaianness, and so it should be struck out as a means of identification for registration. The Supreme Court agrees with the applicants and orders the Electoral Commission to remove persons who hitherto had registered with the National Health Insurance card. But avert your minds to F, one voter registration identification guarantee form as set out in Form 1. That form, what it does is that when I register, then I can vouch for you. So assuming without admitting that I register with the National Health Insurance card, I have a card, Roland, I can now vouch for you, correct?
Definitely.
Now the Supreme Court is saying that my registration is invalid, so my name should be removed. What happens to the people that have used the invalid registration to vouch for? What happens to them? How do you contact trace and then remove them from the register?
So your argument
there's a problem there.
There are people who are holding the voter's ID card and
who are not properly identified
in law. The substantive documents they use in registering is flawed in law.
Absolutely. Now, this is another catch. This is then the Electoral Commission argued, deceptively so, in court, that they have been able to identify some persons who registered with National Health Insurance and they have removed them. Bernard, I think that we need to ask the Electoral Commission to Roland, maybe because they all end in NAD. We have to ask the Electoral Commission how that happened, because it couldn't have happened. This is the Form A1. This is the form that you fill in 2012 when the registry was.
So these arguments you're making is to the point that? It's
to the point that, first of all, the NDC is wrong in the argumentation that the call for a new register is unfounded. It's very much founded. I was making the point to you that in this form, there is no identification as to whether you used National Health Insurance card, as to whether you used your passport, or as to whether you used your driver's license. There is none. This is the form that you fill. So how is the Electoral Commission able to decide that out of the three of us whose name are on the register, Piles used National Health Insurance? Because the Form A1 that you fill does not indicate what document you used to register. But the Electoral Commission looked all of us in the face and told us that they were able to find out persons who used National Health Insurance card to register. So clearly,
because they were ordered by the court to do so. And so
yeah, but I'm saying that if they were ordered by the court, this must explain the methodology. How are they able to find the persons who identified? So, and you know why? Because
the court trusts that because it's mandated, cloned with that law and legal backing to undertake that act.
Yes.
They've been able to succinctly undertake it.
How did they do that? I'm saying to you that the way to do that
I want
is
them to go back to the court to explain to the court.
They should explain. Does it,
to you or
to everybody? You are here. You are interrogating the matter. Honorable,
yes, I'm interrogating the matter.
Honorable Clement Apaak is here. I'm saying that the way to do it is to go back to the form that you filled, and then check from the form and see. So how did they find? How the Electoral Commission must explain. They cannot explain, and that's why I'm saying to you that it is problematic. That register is problematic. So there have to be an understanding that, as for the register that we have, it is not in the best of shapes. Beyond all the other technical reasons that the Electoral Commission has given, that the equipments have come to life, not the register, the management system, the infrastructure, the IT infrastructure that carries the register the Electoral Commission argues that the suppliers, STL, have communicated to them that the system has come to end of life. Beyond all of that, we as persons who are interested, and Honorable Apaak says is interested, we must agree that in the face of all of these breaches that has been established, there is a need for a new register. We can discuss breeder documents and so on and so forth. But if we have to be principled and honest with the people of Ghana, we can agree that no, we have to do something about our register. It's problematic. Then we get to the other issues of breeder documents and so on and so forth.
But is it
now,
is it not true that to establish your citizenship, it is not up to now the NHIA card and then only the passport? Is that not true?
It is very true. You are right.
And in law, if you are able to establish a citizen or the citizenship of a person, that person inherently has a right to vote.
You're right.
Great.
But that's what I'm saying to you that...
So fundamentally, if somebody who has been established through legal documents to have a right to citizenship, herein a right to vote, that same document that establishes his or her citizenship is not accepted as a document for you to get the right to vote, that's a problem.
No, it's not a problem. All CIs that have regulated our registrations, because the lists have not been exhaustive.
We do understand.
So, for instance, I said to you...
We're here because there are documents that are in a previous CI that are not acceptable for making entry into a new voter registration.
And they make the point that...
Is that not the fundamental state of the argument?
That's not entirely true. They make the point about birth certificates, for instance. And I just read to you CI 72. In 2012, when the NDC Parliament passed this CI, they did not include birth certificate. They did not. It's here.
Very well.
Now they are asking that we should include birth certificate. Now there is explanation to that. That the birth certificate that we have is not... it goes through a process and it is validated and enhanced. For instance, it is true that you need a birth certificate to get a passport. But it is not true that all you need is a birth certificate. You have to get people to vouch for you. So if you take your birth certificate and you fill the form and you go to the passport office, you're not going to get a passport. You have to get Ghanaians of good standing, either a religious leader or somebody of high repute to vouch for you.
But you do
so
agree.
That goes through a process to validate and to enhance it.
But you do
and then your picture is added. So that
yes,
I cannot take your birth certificate and go and register. So because it has a picture of me or you. So the birth certificate is improved upon. So in its raw state, in the wisdom of the parliament, even in 2012, they decided that they were not going to add the birth certificate. The Electoral Commission goes behind Parliament to Nicodemously insert it, which is an illegality.
You have stated
but
that.
The point again for me is that Parliament is the place to make the laws. And I want to congratulate the subsidiary legislation committee and the House of Whole that they have an opportunity to appreciate these matters. The NDC can advocate their case there. If they make sense to their colleague members of Parliament, it becomes a part of the regulations. If they do not, if the majority feels that they do not, for want of a better expression, they haven't made sense to them, they will not accept it. But that's what our democracy is about. That the minority can have their say, but the majority will have their way. That is what democracy means. So you cannot be in opposition, you cannot be in minority, you advance a point, you lobby a point. The vast majority of the people say that, well, we hear you, but we don't agree with you. You said what I say must be what happens because I am stronger, I can cause confusion at the police stations, and so on and so forth. That cannot be the attitude. That cannot be the attitude. And I'm saying that on the matter of what breeder documents and all of that, I think that there is reason. Look, Bernard.
Roland.
Sorry, Roland, please forgive me, I beg of you. The national identification card that we are talking about, when in 2012, not a single person in Ghana had the national identification card. In 2012, not a single person had the national identification card. The parliament at the time found it wise to put it as a requirement. Today we have about 12 million Ghanaians having the national identification card. It is now rather you are saying we shouldn't use that. At the time nobody had it, you put it in, in the registration.
You do agree that
because at the
process of securing the National Identification Authority card have been fraught with difficulty. They've not met the timelines. They themselves have promised to share the existing cards that they claim they have printed, but have still not given the access to the ordinary Ghanaian who has registered.
Well, but coronavirus has...
That's an excuse now.
No, but everybody knows that coronavirus has... But Roland, just one briefly. There's also the third layer of the vouching. We should avert our minds to that. Look, in 2016, when we did the limited registration, over 1 million Ghanaians were registered. Over 95% of the registrants, they went through the process of vouching. Over 95%.
And you got these figures from where?
From the Electoral Commission. From the Electoral Commission. So there's a, if you don't have a birth certificate, if you don't have a national identification or a passport, it does not mean that you cannot